Hello everyone! If you enjoy these rare World War II chronicles, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below telling us what city or country are you watching from. Let's get started.
In September 1944, the troops of the Second Ukrainian Front, under the command of Marshal Rodion Malinovsky, entered the territory of Hungary. By this time, Hungary remained the last standing ally of the Third Reich. Back in 1941, the Hungarian army had occupied Soviet territories alongside the Wehrmacht. However, 3 years later, the Red Army, having learned the bitter lessons of the early war years, was confidently advancing across Hungarian soil. Soviet foreign intelligence reported that after the crushing defeat of Hungarian units at Stalingrad, the population no longer supported the pro-war policy of their government and yearned for a return to peaceful life.
The Hungarian regent, Miklos Horthy, entered into secret negotiations with the Soviet government, attempting to sever military cooperation with a Germany doomed to defeat. However, Adolf Hitler could not allow this to happen. Hungary contained the last petroleum sources available to the Third Reich. Furthermore, the Germans viewed Hungary as a vital bastion guarding the path to Austria. On October 15, Horthy announced an armistice with the Soviet Union. In response, Hitler ordered the immediate removal of his former ally. For this mission, the Reich's top commando, Otto Skorzeny, arrived in Budapest. Horthy was removed from power and taken to Germany, after which a puppet government was formed, led by the leader of the Hungarian Arrow Cross Party, Ferenc Szálasi. On his first day in power, Szálasi issued a decree for the total mobilization of all citizens aged 12 to 70. Hitler, in turn, declared Budapest a fortress city and ordered it to be defended to the last possible moment. In Moscow, it became clear that there would be no peaceful armistice with Hungary. The only remaining option was to defeat the German-Hungarian grouping and take Budapest by storm. Initially, the Red Army's advance in Hungary proceeded successfully. Marshal Malinovsky's Second Ukrainian Front broke through the southern enemy defense line and advanced 100 kilometers. Near the city of Debrecen, 10 German divisions were crushed and the Red Army liberated a third of Hungary's territory. An order arrived from Moscow to move toward Budapest without delay and capture the city on the move. The commander of the Second Ukrainian Front reported to the Stavka, High Command, that the city's approaches were heavily fortified and that he needed at least 5 days to prepare and bring up reserves. Joseph Stalin decisively rejected all of Malinovsky's objections, and on the morning of October 29, 1944, the Budapest Strategic Offensive began.
The main blow was delivered by the 46th Army under General Ivan Schliemann. After committing 2 Guards Mechanized Corps to the battle, the left wing of the Second Ukrainian Front managed to reach the immediate outskirts of Budapest from the south by the end of November 2. However, having encountered stubborn resistance, Malinovsky's troops failed to break into the Hungarian capital immediately. By late October, the southeastern part of the Hungarian oil fields in the Great Hungarian Plain, Ulfeld, was already controlled by Soviet troops. Hitler could not afford to lose the remaining oil-producing regions in the west, near Lake Balaton and the Nagy-Kanizsa district. Additionally, Hungary was a primary food supplier and provided the German aviation industry with ore for aluminum smelting. The loss of this vital frontier would lead to the shutdown of most German military factories and the cessation of front-line supplies. The defense of Hungary was tasked to the German Army Group South, which numbered up to 500,000 soldiers and officers, armed with 4,200 guns and 800 tanks. The German-Hungarian grouping concentrated in the Budapest area was commanded by the experienced General Hans Friesner. Meanwhile, in November 1944, Malinovsky, having finished regrouping his forces, launched new strikes in 2 directions simultaneously.
During heavy fighting, the front between the Tisa and Danube rivers was breached by 100 kilometers from the north and south, and Soviet units moved close to the outer defense perimeter of Budapest. However, Friesner decided to seize the initiative and launched an unexpected counteroffensive. The 3rd Panzer Corps delivered a powerful strike against the Soviet flank, forcing them to halt their advance and even abandon some positions. This counterstrike became a serious problem for Malinovsky, as his front lacked tanks and self-propelled guns. By order of the Stavka, they had been sent north toward Berlin. Facing stubborn resistance from both Germans and Hungarians, Soviet troops suffered heavy losses, and the advance on Budapest was temporarily suspended.
Stalin realized that Malinovsky could not take Budapest alone. The Stavka brought in units from the 3rd Ukrainian Front under Marshal Fyodor Tolbukhin. According to the new plan, Budapest was to be encircled by 2 converging strikes from the northeast and southwest. In early December 1944, Soviet troops crossed the Danube, broke through enemy defenses, and reached the northern suburbs. In the south, where resistance was fiercest, the Stavka committed all available reserves to the battle. Soviet tank groups bypassed the city from the west, and on December 26th, met with the northern group of troops near the city of Esztergom. Budapest was completely surrounded. The city had been turned into a literal fortress. 3 lines of defense were built around Budapest, each 5 to 10 kilometers deep, consisting of trenches, bunkers, minefields, and anti-tank ditches 3 meters deep. By the start of the storming, the city's garrison numbered 188,000 men, larger than the garrisons of the powerful German fortress cities of Königsberg, Breslau, and Poznan combined. Every brick and reinforced concrete building was mined, with machine gun nests set up in basements. Beyond the main defense belt, the Margaret Line, the city was protected from the east by another fortified line, known as the Attila Line, or the Hunnic Wall. The Budapest garrison was led by SS General Karl Pfeffer-Wildenbruch. The Soviet command wished to avoid bloody street fighting in such a large city, and on the morning of December 29th, sent 2 groups of parliamentarians with an ultimatum for surrender.
The surrender demands were to be delivered by Captain Ilya Ostapenko and Captain Miklos Steinmetz. Steinmetz, approaching the Pest side in an American Willys Jeep with a large white flag, was gunned down by German machine fire. In the Buda district, Ostapenko was received, but after the Germans rejected the ultimatum, he was treacherously shot in the back as he left. Following the murder of the envoys, the Soviet command ordered the immediate storming of Budapest. In a special directive, Stalin wrote to Tolbukhin and Malinovsky, to avoid heavy casualties and accelerate the surrender, the Stavka ordered the use of all artillery calibers, including the heaviest, as well as aviation and sapper demolition teams. The urban combat in the narrow streets and labyrinthine underground passages of the capital excluded the mass use of tanks. The Red Army applied its Stalingrad experience. The advance was led by small assault groups consisting of an infantry platoon, several guns, 1 or 2 tanks, sappers with explosives, and flamethrower units.
In early January 1945, Soviet artillery of all calibers opened fire. Due to the need to repel counterattacks from SS divisions arriving from the Warsaw sector, nearly all Soviet tank units were deployed to the outer encirclement front. Consequently, infantry and artillery became the foundation of the assault operations. Direct fire was used against fortified buildings. After suppressing enemy bunkers, Soviet soldiers threw grenades into windows and began clearing floors. Colonel Pyotr Panchevsky, commander of the 12th Assault Engineering Sapper Brigade, recalled, "The fighting was for every block, every building, and often for every floor and every room." Storming blocks with reinforced concrete structures led to heavy losses.
sappers used explosives to blow holes in walls, and flamethrowers burned out defensive positions before the infantry moved forward through the buildings or underground tunnels to avoid open streets. Block by block, the assault groups systematically dissected the defense. On January 18, 1945, after heavy fighting, the Red Army liberated the eastern part of the city, Pest, and saved approximately 70,000 local Jews from a ghetto hastily organized by the Selassie government. At the same time, German-Hungarian troops began to retreat to the western part of the capital, Buda. Upon crossing, the Germans blew up all bridges across the Danube. The assault on Buda began on January 20th and lasted 3 weeks. Soviet tanks and assault groups struck Buda simultaneously from the north and south. The Red Army had not encountered such fierce resistance in any other European city. Division engineer Colonel Vladimir Baranovsky recalled, "The entire city, all stone buildings are mined. The heaviest battles for the city lasted 48 days. Losses were colossal. Companies were left with only 15 men."
Strategic importance, national pride, and German propaganda combined to make the Hungarian units fight to the very end. Having retreated to the center of Buda, Hungarian and German soldiers entrenched themselves in the heavily fortified royal palace and the citadel on Gellért Hill. From these heights they fired upon anything that moved. On the approaches to these fortresses, Malinovsky's troops lost 2,500 men killed and wounded daily, and Tolbuchin's lost 1,500. The citadel was bombed daily from the air and shelled by heavy-caliber guns. The uneven terrain with sharp elevation changes further complicated the use of Soviet artillery and armor. Throughout January 1945, fierce street fighting continued. Meanwhile, Hitler did everything possible to deblockade his Budapest grouping and restore the front line along the Danube. However, all 3 massive counteroffensive attempts failed. General Wildenbruch repeatedly requested permission to withdraw, but Hitler replied, "I would rather surrender Berlin than Budapest." Soon, Soviet aviation cut off the air corridors, depriving the besieged of their last supply channel. By early February, when most of Buda was under Soviet control, supplies ceased entirely. Driven into the labyrinths of the Buda castle, German and Hungarian soldiers fought desperately. Soviet artillery and aviation tried to level the fortress, but the deep casemates withstood the strikes. By February 7th, the German forces had exhausted all possibilities for rescue. When hope of outside help vanished and ammunition ran out, over 10,000 soldiers attempted a breakout, but nearly all were destroyed by Soviet artillery. On February 11, 1945, Soviet troops launched the final assault on Buda Castle and the Royal Palace, the final line of defense. There was nowhere left to retreat. The massive artillery preparation soon forced the remnants of the Hungarian 10th Infantry Division to lay down their arms. The following day, the commander, Wildenbruch, attempted to escape the city through a sewer pipe and was captured. On February 13, the last pockets of resistance in Buda were suppressed. A few hours later, Moscow received the long-awaited telegram, "Budapest is taken." A dead silence fell over the city. The storming had lasted 49 days. In the battles for Budapest, 80,000 Soviet soldiers gave their lives. Total Axis losses amounted to 150,000 men, with 63,000 soldiers and officers taken prisoner. The Budapest operation radically changed the situation on the southern wing of the front, opening a direct path to Vienna and forcing the Wehrmacht to pull mobile reserves away from the central Berlin direction. The battle for Budapest ended, but the struggle for Hungary continued. Ahead lay the final strategic offensive of the Third Reich in World War II. In March 1945, near Lake Balaton, German units delivered a terrifying blow to the positions of the Third Ukrainian Front. In a sector of roughly 100 kilometers, the enemy concentrated more armor than on the eastern and western fronts combined. The situation was saved by the unauthorized initiative of Marshal Fyodor Tolbukin. Had Tolbukin followed the Stavka's initial order to continue the advance on Vienna, it would have ended in military catastrophe. His decision to create hardened defensive positions instead allowed the Red Army to withstand the blow and destroy the last effective German tank units, ensuring the final rapid dash toward Berlin.